Do we have Raymond?
I'm here.
Hey, sweetheart. So where are you?
Oh, don't even ask, Teresa. I started my day yesterday at 5 a.m. in Doral down in Miami to interview Donald Trump. I ended up in Houston. I had a dinner last night in Houston. I'm now at the airport on my way to Washington to do the show. So
all right. Well, I can only imagine because I know crazy times right now, very busy. But thanks for spending a few minutes with us. So I was going to let you make the announcement, but you kind of did. So you have an exclusive interview then with Donald Trump tomorrow night, correct?
We do, yeah. It's going to air tomorrow night. And we got into everything. I mean, you were just talking about religious liberty. We talked about religious liberty. We talked about those WikiLeaks revelations concerning Catholics and evangelicals from John Podesta's hacked email account. I have to tell you, I found it, and I think people will be struck by both the control as well as the defiance of Donald Trump. He's it's a very different man, I think you'll get here. Now, I had met him before, so we didn't walk in cold, and it was a different tone. We had some fun. It was a really fun ending to the interview, and we touched everything from the opinion of some women and men about his comments to Billy Bush and subsequent threats toward those making accusations against him. We talked about his pro-life, how he changed to become pro-life, which is something he really hasn't addressed before at length. So it's good. It's a really interesting interview in many ways. I think viewers will be fascinated by it, no matter where you are on the political spectrum.
So in terms of other interviews, have you reached out to some of the other candidates, some of the third-party candidate and also the Democratic candidate, Hillary Clinton?
You bet. We have reached out to any candidate that's on all 50 state ballots. You can't, I'm not a believer in, reaching out to anybody who's an announced presidential candidate. I mean, there's hundreds of them. We could be here all afternoon. If they're not on in all 50 states, we haven't reached out to them. I will tell you, we regularly communicate with Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine's office. Donald Trump was the first one to say yes. So if someone from the Kaine campaign or the Clinton campaign is listening, I'm more than happy to sit with either my senator from Virginia or Mrs. Clinton, both of whom I've met in the past.
All right, let's talk a little bit, and I was just mentioning this at the top of the hour because you and I have media backgrounds, and we're very familiar with how the media operate. And I am just, regardless, and I did a big talk in the Diocese of Cleveland on Thursday night on discerning media messages in an election year. And Raymond, I've never seen anything like this. You and I both know, and I think most of our viewers and listeners are smart enough to know that the media and the evidence backs this up. The research, dating back to the famous, Lichter-Rothman report, shows that the media lean heavily to the left. But I've never seen anything like this in my 35 years in media, both Catholic and secular media, where it has just been so blatantly toward the left in pushing agendas and particular candidates from the president all the way on down.
A lot of it is you're dealing with a lot of people. I mean, I try to back it up and say, okay, why is that happening? It's a couple of things. One, I don't think you throw the first stone at the media. I frankly, and a lot of my Catholic friends might get upset with this, I throw the first stone, frankly, at pastors and bishops who for decades have failed to properly catechize and teach people what the faith demands, what are the compunctions of faith. And so many adults, young adults particularly, get out into the workforce, no matter what their field, and they're clueless, Teresa. And now you add media in, and let's be honest, most of the people, even working at the network level and in newspapers, these are 20-somethings to early 30-somethings. They're kids who don't know a whole lot. So, I remember covering Hillary Clinton's health care, when she was running the country trying to get her own nationalized health care plan off the ground. I covered the Clinton White House. I covered Newt Gingrich when he was, on Capitol Hill. So when I look at these guys today, when I see what Paul Ryan's doing or Trump is doing or Hillary's doing, I come with a whole host of background knowledge as well as ghosts that follow me as I cover these stories. That's important information for your audience.
Well, I share that, but my point is I agree with you in terms of the lack of catechesis, but you also have people that are embedded, and I have friends who are investigative reporters, and there's a friend of mine that I actually feature in my latest book, Beyond Me, Myself, and I, who has been in the business for 25 years with other journalists who have been in the business for 25, 30 years, who have, not him, but who he's seeing this agenda from the top on down. So absolutely agree with you that many of them are young. But in terms of this over the top and the lies also, Raymond, not just the bias, but the blatant lies on the part of it. And that's not helping anybody. What I tell people is wherever you stand on the issues.
My argument, I agree with you. And by the way, I endorsed your book, so I remember. But it was, and I totally agree. But I think added to that, you have stupidity, which you shouldn't underestimate. And there are a lot of very dumb, uninformed people who are suddenly, they wake up and they're journalists.
And they're experts.
And they don't know anything. I mean, they're pretty, they're nice to look at, handsome guys, nice-looking ladies, but they don't know what they're talking about. So they're easily spun and easily become co-opted, willing dupes in political agendas.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
next thing you know, they're just hammering away at people.
Right. And so what's the message then? Because I mean, I know that you agree with me on this. For our listeners, that's why it's so important to make sure that you're getting information. Obviously, we want to hear it from a truly Catholic perspective, but if you're looking at the media, you want to make sure that you're taking what they say with a grain of salt, always balancing what the church teaches.
Yeah. I read widely, Teresa. I tell everyone you should read international publications. You should read the Wall Street Journal. You should read the New York Times. Read everything. And with online resources, you have so much available to you. And also, I would also say, just because something is called Catholic media doesn't mean it's necessarily reliable. You have to discern all of that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I come across absolutely atrocious things in so-called Catholic media every day. And I'm taken aback at times by the lies peddled and the agendas woven into the reportage.
Oh yeah, I came across something this morning that was sent to me, and a person wrote something. I don't want to go into detail, but did not even understand how we operate and totally attacked us incorrectly. And this person is out there, and people are commenting on it and making us look bad. And I'm like, she doesn't even know what she's talking about. She has no idea how we operate. And this is a Catholic outlet.
I mean, but again, the Catholic, the bar is really low when you're talking about, people calling themselves Catholic, whatever. And what happens is you get these people who just show up. Suddenly they start a website or they start a little broadcast thing, and suddenly, they're Walter Cronkite. Okay, well, where prove your bones. I mean, I think there should be a threshold of credibility that you have to pass before an audience should take you seriously.
Right.
And, look, we all make mistakes, Reese. God knows I've made tons of them. And hopefully I've fessed up to them, and the rest of them are apparent. But, we have to constantly seek the truth. The truth is sometimes ugly. I mean, this interview with Donald Trump is not like he and I, holding hands, dancing through the greens at Doral. I confront him on the comments he made about women. I came right out and asked him. I said, look, there are a lot of men I come across, and they say they cannot vote for you because of what you said about women. They said they can't look at their wives and their daughters and vote for you. You would tell them what? And he struggles with it. But it's important for us to ask those questions. It's important for us to get these people on the record. They're asking to hold the highest office in the land. And I love the fact that, and I feel honored that, I'm the person they allowed in to hold their feet to the fire and both get answers for our audience as well as ask questions that otherwise wouldn't get asked. So it's a big responsibility in some ways.
Yeah, it is. It's a big responsibility. It's a huge platform, and I'm glad you took the challenge. Now, in terms of Donald Trump, and let me just get your gut reaction, because I'm sure you're hearing from a lot of listeners and viewers, as I am, and other talk show hosts here at EWTN are, wondering if Donald Trump can be trusted when he says he's pro-life. We don't have a record because he hasn't run for office before. So what was your gut telling you in terms of the interview?
Well, I'm going to let people listen to the story. That's why I asked the question, because, look, I'm a skeptic, Teresa. Look, I doubted Mother Angelica when she told me of miraculous things that happened in her life. As a journalist, I've got to go test that. I've got to interview other people. That has to all pass the smell test and check out. I feel the same way about Donald Trump. He says he's pro-life. I asked him, what was the moment where you decided in your heart and your mind to make a change, and what was the moment that convinced you that you were pro-life? Now, it's an interesting story. It's an interesting answer. And as he points out, and it's worth repeating, Donald Trump was a businessman who probably didn't take these issues all that seriously, probably didn't even think through them before running. Ronald Reagan was a sitting governor of California who signed the biggest abortion bill and the first one in the country, let's not forget. And he had a major turnabout and became the most pro-life president in the history of the republic. So I do think one has to permit room for conversion. And I have to say, whether it's Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, the vitriol I've heard from both sides, the kind of pharisaical, unforgiving, like these people should be cast into the outer darkness, is so un-Catholic and ugly. It's just not who we should be. And so, we can disagree violently with people on issues and vote accordingly. But when you get personal and you start saying, he's a pig and she's a this and that one's a that, yeah, it rips us apart on a certain level. And I just don't think it's what we should be as a people, and certainly not as Catholic people.
All right, so this airs tomorrow night on The World Over, correct?
You bet. 8 o'clock Eastern Time. It's a fun interview. There's a lot that's revealed. James Rosen will join me to handicap it and kind of unpack it, what it means. As you see, Teresa, all these states are tightening up.
Right.
Trump is up 2 in Florida.
He's
just
saw that.
Even in Arizona. Yeah. So this race is going to tighten. I think the whole thing's in the margin of error, frankly. And it's going to be a race to the finish. It's all about turnout. So now we'll see if they really have the force of their convictions. We'll see on November 8th.
All right. Well, listen, thanks for joining me on your busy travel schedule. Look forward to the show tomorrow night. And thanks for doing this. I'm glad they responded. Again, Raymond did put out, and EWTN did put out, of course, notices to all the candidates in terms of the main presidential candidates saying, hey, if you're interested in coming on the program, we'd like to talk to you. And Trump was the first one to respond. And as a result, the interview is going to be airing tomorrow night on The World Over, 8 o'clock Eastern Time on EWTN. Thanks, my friend. Always good to dish with you back and forth.
Thank you, Teresa. I'm delighted. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, honey. God bless. Bye-bye. Raymond Arroyo, of course, from EWTN, author, speaker, and host of The World Over, with his interview tomorrow with Donald Trump at 8 o'clock Eastern Time in the evening.